All right, well, don't let that fool you. This is not an M3. Should be obvious. Just look down the sides. But this is still very exciting because this is an E30 BMW 325is. What is it, Connor? Is it 1989?
It's a 1989.
Yeah, so this is my roommate and good friend, Connor, which means that this E30 now lives in my driveway, which means by the transitive property or whatever, I get to drive it, which is pretty exciting. So we're just going to walk through this car today, talk to Connor about why he bought it, what all he's going to do with it, because this is the beginning of a very big project. So Connor, tell me a little about it. How much did you get it for, and what are you looking to do with it?
So it was expensive. It was more than I was hoping to pay for. It was $8,500. You know, I just had that fear in the back of my head that getting my hands on a decent E30 shell in the next couple of years is going to skyrocket, just like every other early 90s kind of style car is.
Yeah, and I'm sure it will.
And I'm sure it will. So realistically, buying this for $85 now and as good of condition as it is, in my mind, is still a good price. I think, you know, they're going to continue to go up. I mean, I've been looking all over. Most of them are over 20 now, so I feel like I got somewhat of a decent deal. And all I really needed was a good shell, and this has exactly that. Yeah,
and so we'll get into why exactly he's just looking for pretty much a shell of a car in a moment, but first let's kind of look at just the condition that this is in. So the really nice thing with the way that it sits is that your paint is really nice. I mean, if you look just down the hood, it's pretty smooth. It's definitely got some little dings, little dents in it. Is there anything in terms of bodywork that you've found in particular that's not great on this car?
So I think there is a little bit of Bondo in the rear quarters along this backside. So the car was resprayed at some point. There's a little bit of density change from some of the panels into this spot, and there's some minor pinholing that I did find. You know, again, to be expected for the age of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look down the side of the car, though, whoever did that Bondo, I mean, it's a good job. This is a good paint job in general.
Yeah.
There are, of course, a couple little things. I mean, on both sides, this paint at the base of the window is flaking off, and of course, as you probably saw at the front end, yeah, this BMW badge is clapped out. I'm amazed that somebody would have this good of paint on their car and then let that BMW badge go. And then another thing too is that the headlights are obviously a little hazy. Those are all things that are really easy to fix. But the plan with this car really isn't doing a full restoration. So this is a pretty high mileage BMW. It looks clean on the outside, but you're finding that it's got some mechanical gremlins.
Yeah, every single wheel bearing is bad.
Okay.
Which I think, you know, the odometer I think stopped at like 230. I'm assuming this has somewhere of upwards of like 260 on the chassis.
Right.
And the wheel bearings definitely sound like it. I mean, this thing just hums in your head while you're driving it. But other than that, I mean, I guess the motor was, head gasket was done at some point. It does run really well. It really wakes up at like 3,500 RPM, and it goes down the road like a go-kart. So it's a lot of fun to drive. It's been my first E30 experience. And I must say, I'm just completely blown away with how the chassis feels and how fun it is to drive.
Yeah, I've never driven an E30. I've been drooling over these cars for years and years and years. And yeah, now there's one in my house. Well, this is actually genuinely the first day and like the first hour I've gotten to see this car for myself. So I'm pretty excited about it. Now, the reason that it doesn't really matter that the powertrain has so many miles on it and everything is because Connor, the speed demon he is, big fan of 2JZs, aren't you?
Sure am.
Yeah, so the plan is for a 2JZ, so basically a Mark IV Supra engine to go into this, and then it's going to be able to make a ton of power. Now, while I say that, there's already some old guys heading for their keyboards to tell you how much of an idiot you are for not just doing a full restoration on this car, but
100%.
There's tons of E30s kicking around. It's fun to do something unique with it, and also this isn't your car, so it doesn't really matter whether you like the fact that he's going to do a swap on it or not. I'm really excited about it because I've driven a Mark IV Supra with a tuned up 2J, and that motor is an absolute blast, even though the Supra is not a particularly small or lightweight car. So that much power in this is going to be pretty rowdy. So what are you shooting for in terms of horsepower when this is all put together?
So realistically, my total end goal is to end up with a Mark IV Supra at some point. How realistic that goal is with the price of things is very far away. So my idea of this, and the reason that I'm doing the 2J swap in the way that I am, it's going to be a full standalone system with a digital dash and everything, and essentially this is going to be, it's going to have a good running gear setup for if I do end up coming across a good Mark IV shell, I can take everything out of this, swap it back, this can go back to original, I can sell it and get my money back out of it. Yeah. But in the meantime, I mean, I'd really like, one, the swap for these has been done a bunch of times.
So engine mounts are really easy to find.
Yeah, I mean, for the motor and trans that I've already got a line on.
The hood, actually?
Yeah, it's already motor and trans, and the mounts with the transmission cross member I think comes out to like $450 for everything. So I mean, realistically, it's not crazy to get a JZ in here. You know, it's obviously a lot of other systems to figure out, but it really won't be too bad. And it's not my first JZ swap either, so I know what I'm getting myself into.
Yeah, you put a 2JZ into a Tacoma, you're familiar with the motors. This swap is probably, it's not going to be, I wouldn't think, a whole lot more difficult than it would be putting it into your the Tacoma that you had, because this is already an inline six. Hopefully it'll fit pretty well. Again, people have done these swaps a ton of times before. And basically what this car is going to end up being is a mix between a track car and a street car. So it's still going to be quiet and supple enough in terms of ride that you can still take it out, go to the grocery store, whatever, but you're going to throw hydraulic e-brake in it, all of that, half cage, make it something that you can actually take to the track, practice drifting with, right?
Right, yeah, that's kind of the end goal of it. You know, I think first phase of it is basically just going to be getting the engine, trans. I've got to upgrade some steering parts and the diff. You kind of take a whole hodgepodge of different BMW era items to make that all work. Z3 rear end, or the MZ3 rear end, e36 steering rack and stuff. So it'll still have a lot of BMW soul in the chassis itself, but it'll basically just be the Toyota driveline that will be the fun part.
Now, here's where we're going to make people really upset. In order to hold all of the power from the 2J, and granted, you're not going for a crazy number, like somewhere between 500 and 600 horsepower.
Yep.
Still a lot for a car that weighs, less than 3,000 pounds, right?
Yep.
So the plan is to do some type of wide body kit on this, probably like an M3 clone type of wide body kit, because again, there's already Bondo in this car. The powertrain has tons and tons of miles on it. I know these are spectacularly fun cars to drive, even though I've never driven one. From everything that I've ever heard, I understand that they're perfect as they are, right? But we're excited to do something different. So, yeah, we don't really care what.
Yeah, and I mean, again, if this didn't have Bondo in it and it was absolute pristine and everything was functional the way it's supposed to be, I would be on a different side of this, of not trying to do what I want to do with it. But since it is high miles, it's been resprayed, you know, it's definitely been through the ringer. I don't feel bad cutting it up, putting on some wide body fenders, and really making it so that it just becomes this ultimate driver oriented, fast, obnoxious, put you in the back of the seat, scare you a little bit, but that's realistically what I enjoy out of vehicles, and it's just going to be really cool to take this through the process and make something like that.
Well, just standing next to this car, it disguises its high miles and not originality pretty well, but I'm interested to get behind the wheel and take it for a little drive to actually see how it does. Now, real quick, talking about the interior, I know you said there's a dash cover and these seats have been recovered. So it's definitely, like we were mentioning already, not super original, but it is nice that the interior, at least on surface level, looks pretty good, because if you're going to turn it into a race car, there's, don't really want to have to do a full restoration on the interior.
Exactly, and that was kind of, I wanted the shell to be good, but just good enough. So this fits the profile. I think it's going to come out really awesome with what we've got planned, and again, I think either it might end up becoming my Mark IV Supra, and I might just end up building this out for forever and really making it exactly what I have this image in my head of it being. So
Wow. You just handed me the keys. Tommy thought it was funny that I actually didn't even ask if I could drive this car. I just assumed.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how I treat some certain vehicles that I like in our household that don't belong to me.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
Connor also has a small but incredibly fun Honda motorcycle that I borrow without asking.
Don't you love that shifter?
Oh my God.
It feels like it's in neutral when it's in a gear, just so you know.
Yeah, okay. So we're definitely seeing, yeah, you've got a check engine light on, your ABS light is on.
Press this, it all goes away.
Oh, okay. For a good reason, or should it go away?
Sure.
Okay, my genuine first moments ever driving an E30.
Isn't it magical?
It's pretty magical as it is, yeah. That shifter, oh my God, it moves a lot.
I mean, that's like 3.5 inches of movement, easy.
Yikes. Yeah, so this is not like the perfectly pristine, maintained E30 that belongs in a museum. I think this is the right candidate for another
Engelhard
motor. Oh no, we didn't scrape, we're good.
You got a low lift.
Okay.
All right, it really comes alive at like $4 grand.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. It's so much fun already, and I'm not even in a corner yet. What, dude?
Yeah, isn't it phenomenal?
This is fantastic. How does it handle a bump? Let's see.
You gotta hit the bump slow, but...
Yeah, it's not like a soft riding-ish. Well, it doesn't ride hard either.
Well, it's got to, it's factory struts with Eibach lowering springs.
Dude, this is
it's an
I swear to God,
go-kart.
This is the most fun I've maybe ever had, like ringing a car out with people standing nearby and not giving a rip.
Yeah.
Like if I was ripping this hard on any kind of performance car,
people would be mad.
Yeah, people would be upset. Nobody cares. That was not a great shift, but I'm still having a blast. Oh my God, we gotta keep this up. My favorite driving car, which I've ever driven, than any other car. So I love the 993 Porsche 911. Air-cooled, just drives beautifully, and this parts of it remind me of that, which is a great thing, especially because this doesn't cost nearly as much. Now, I'm not going to say that this is as good as a 993 911, but again, there's parts of it that are reminding me of that, which is pretty spectacular for less than 10 grand. And I really don't even care that this car is as clapped out as it is, because it's still pretty fun to drive. Not a lot of power until you're revved up pretty high, but don't you want to be revved up high?
You sure do.
This is maybe the only old car I've ever gotten in and driven and thought, I want to drive this really, really hard. Because usually you get into an old car and it feels very delicate and you're worried about breaking it. And I know people hate German cars for being a pain to work on. But this does not feel very delicate. And I know these cars are not all that delicate.
No.
How's the turning radius? It's good.
It's good. The power steering is completely gone, but
who needs power steering when you weigh 2,800 pounds?
Right.
Oh my God. This is some of the most fun I've had in a car, period. This is amazing. And again, we're not even on an especially windy road, which is, I think, where this would really shine.
Right.
The few corners I have gotten to hook around, I can totally see how go-kart like this is, even though, yeah, this one is suspension and steering and everything aren't as tight as I know it could be. But even straight line performance, just ringing it out, which is 100% not what this car is famous for. God, it's a blast doing that. I love that we have an MPG gauge.
Yep, tells you that. Fuel gauge doesn't work.
That's not required. Fuel gauge would be nice, but...
Fuel gauge would be nice, but like I said, I mean, the eventual plan is full digital dash.
Yeah.
There's a company that makes a 3D printed thing for the AEM dash to go right in there. So.
Oh man, are you 100% sure you don't want to do a full restoration on this? We'll get a second one. We'll get 2 of them.
We'll get 2 of them. I would rather choose a cleaner one for a full resto, but this one's going to be so much fun. I mean,
no, I think you're right. I love keeping cars very, very original. I think it's awesome, but at the same time, we like working on stuff, you especially, and so it's going to be cool to just do something totally out of the box, take on this really big project that's going to give you an opportunity to develop a lot of new skills. You want to try and make your own cage to throw in this, right?
Yeah, I'll probably weld out the entire thing myself.
Yeah, learning even more about doing engine swaps, doing engine tuning, and then from a driving perspective, being able to take this car to the track when it's all built out and actually using it to hone your skills, because I know trying to build something to use as a drift car has been your plan for a long time.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, the perfect vehicle to do all of that. Because again, as amazing as these are, the way they come from the factory, they're not rare.
Right.
You can find lots of them. There's plenty of these cars that have just been maintained and kept. And if you want to find a museum spec, perfectly OEM one, there's lots of them out there.
Exactly.
This one is clapped out. This is the right one to do something wild with. And I'm really excited to see how it all turns out. They say that you should never meet your heroes, and I just met one of mine, not you, the car, and it's honestly everything that I hoped. Even a high mileage one like this, bringing it out, taking it to the ragged edge, it is so perfect, and I can fully appreciate, I think both of us can, why people love these cars the way that they come from the factory. But
totally.
Once again, it's just going to be really cool to do something completely different, make this an absolutely wild machine. It's more Connor's style, and so he's going to turn this into exactly the type of vehicle that he's looking for.
And I mean, just to say too, the first time that I had ever learned about 2Js was literally this chassis, this specification. Like, this is, for me, this goes back to like early 2000s of when I got into the cars and building stuff and modding stuff. So this is literally like, it's been the back of my mind kind of dream build that I've always wanted to do. So this is just the right time for me to do it. So
yeah, and on a similar note for me as well, I mean, I've had plans to buy one of these for 4 or 5 years, and I've also been planning to throw a 2J into a station wagon version of an E30 for the last year or so. That's my ultimate goal. So yeah, I can definitely get behind this, and we'll definitely be making more videos with this car when we make some progress throwing that motor in there. So stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next video.